Hi, I'm Joe Butt, and you are watching Joe Butt TV. I am with Chris Barrow. This is the second bit of the interview that we're going to have, whereby Chris is going to give us one clinical tip, or at least a foundation tip for dentists who are qualified probably between the years 5 and 10 of their career, have got some finances, or maybe they've got some funding from parents or the banks because they have a financial history to give them the amount of money, and they're considering setting up a dental practice. So I've asked Chris, if that's okay with you, one sound tip that you feel people will benefit from who are in that age category.
Sure. I've been working with dentists for 21 years now, and during that time, I don't think there's ever been a time where I haven't been working with somebody that was in the process of either buying their very first practice or opening their very first practice as well. And so, based upon that experience, there's probably one tip. And I'm kind of laughing to myself while I'm saying this, because as I explain to you what the tip is, you'll also realise in a way how difficult it is to get this across to people. But what I actually call this when I'm talking to people is the 40% rule.
Right.
Okay, so let me explain what I mean by the 40% rule. When you are buying or opening your first practice, there are three commodities that you are going to need in order to make a success of that business. In no particular order, the first commodity is going to be that you're going to have to invest your time in the project. The second commodity is that you're going to have to invest either your money or somebody's money in the project. And the third commodity is that you are going to have to hire some people, because you cannot do everything. And here's the 40% rule, that when people come to me a year, 18 months, 2 years after they've bought or they've opened, almost without fail, they have underestimated the requirement for each of those three categories by 40% each.
Wow. Okay.
So what happened was, they thought that they could get away with this project if they were prepared to invest 40 hours a week in the project. But the reality is it's taking 60 hours a week.
Yep.
They did a cash flow forecast, and they worked out what the capital expenditure was going to be, and they worked out what the overheads were going to be, and they came to the conclusion that maybe, they were going to open a 3-chair practice, or they were going to buy a 3-chair practice, and they needed £400,000 for the project. And the reality is that they needed £600,000 for the project. But, and this is the real problem, in some cases, they either had a credit limit of 400 or they had funding of 400. They cut the ribbon and they run out of cash,
right,
because they didn't estimate what it was going to cost maybe to do the marketing. It's a common problem. They underestimate the price of the marketing that's going to be needed to get the place to the next level. And the next thing they're doing is they're hiring people, and they think that they need 8 people to run the practice, and they need 12 or whatever the numbers are. And so what often happens, the good news is that sometimes I'm brought in at the planning stage.
So you can help.
And they say, well, here's what they usually do is they say, here's my Excel spreadsheet. And I'll go in there and I'll say, you are underestimating the amount of capital that you need, and you're underestimating what it's going to cost you to run the business. What they don't do is any time management. They don't work out what the calendar is going to be for the next year. And so I'm turning around and saying, have you got any idea how many days this is going to take? How many hours? Have you got any ideas that maybe you're not going to be having quite so many holidays? The snowboarding trip in February might not be happening for the next 3 years, and so on. And have you any idea how many people that you're going to have around you in order to actually get this project off the ground? And so the good news is that if you can get there in a consultancy basis before they close the deal or cut the ribbon, you can usually give them the advice. Let me tell you something, Joe. I give that advice. Some people fire me. I don't want this guy in my life because he's telling me that I can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get fired for that, but I'll just stick with the truth.
Sure.
Or alternatively, I get the email there's a great thing. Nobody ever emails me because they're happy.
No,
That's not happened.
No.
Dear Chris, I felt so good this morning. I thought I'd send you an email saying I'd like to hire you. That never happened. What happens is that I get the email 18 months into the project where they've run out of time, they've run out of money, they've run out of people, and I get the email saying, "Hey, coach, where the hell do we go next?" And that's actually almost the more difficult job, because what you're trying to do is give people some Gordon Ramsay tough love and say, okay, listen, what you've done so far is great, but we're going to need some extra resources to actually get this across the line. So remember the 40% rule, which is that you're probably underestimating by 40% what resources you need, and take a lot of time out either certainly at the beginning of the project, before you buy, before you open. You make absolutely sure that those calendar estimates, those financial estimates, and those HR estimates are as accurate as they can be. That's the tip.
I think that's a great tip, and I can pretty much very easily relate to that, because one of the difficulties, I'm sure you'll agree with owning a dental practice, you still have to be the clinician. So the time you spend in seeing patients now, because you own the practice, you want to do the very best. Not that you're not doing the very best, but now you want to go the extra mile in looking after these patients clinically.
Yeah.
So where is the management time?
I was having a conversation with a client of mine this morning, and I'm going to quote to you what the client said to me. Now, this individual is running a £2 million specialist referral practice in another part of the world from London. And I went in to see him for a regular meeting this morning, and I was saying, how are things? And he said, do you know what? He said, when you're the chief executive of a £2 million company, what happens is that you pitch up for work at 9 o'clock every morning, and you've got a desk and a chair and a telephone, and you spend 8 hours running your £2 million company as the chief executive, and then you jump in the car and you go home and have your dinner. He says, what do I do? He says, I pitch up in this place in the morning, I have 20 minutes with my team, I then go in a cave for 8 hours where I'm doing dentistry, that down here, and then at the end of the day I get 20 minutes where I open the door and everybody goes, Chief Executive, can you sort this out? Which way? Up, down, left, right, red, blue? And I have to make all of those decisions before I get to go home. And he actually said to me, it's not fair.
That's exactly what I was commenting about.
And I said, and I said to him, well, you know what? I know it's not fair, but if you wanted the first job, you should have been an accountant or a graphic designer or a web developer, because those guys don't have to go in the cave every day and do all the work. You've got a bunch of clerks who are adding up and subtracting, or you've got a bunch of techs who are building websites, and you're sitting there being Mrs. Chief Executive all day long. And that's the dilemma in dentistry. And of course, it's that thing that Michael Gerber speaks about so beautifully in the E-Myth material, where part of the day you are what Gerber describes as a technician. That's the guy doing the dentistry. Part of the day you're the manager. That's the guy making sure the team are all in shape. And part of the day you're the entrepreneur. That's the guy that's sitting there going, where the hell are we going next? And the amazing challenge of dentistry is that you have to wear all three hats. The only way you can sit in the technician box is to becoming a travelling specialist with no practice. The only way you can sit in the management box all day is probably to join a corporate. And the only way you can be in the entrepreneur box all day is to get the hell out of dentistry and go and open a restaurant or something,
Very true.
And God bless you all, because that supplied me with a living for a long time, because of course I'm one of the psychiatrists that these people go to and say, how the hell do we do all this?
And that goes back to what I was saying in the previous clip, that lack of education in business. Zero. Zero.
And isn't it interesting, Joe, that what year did you qualify?
92.
So think about the business of dentistry in 1992 was a piece of cake.
Correct.
All right. There wasn't any marketing.
No.
All right. You didn't have to think about the patient experience.
No CQC.
No compliance. No CQC.
No employment rights.
No digital dentistry. No HR. No employment law. Basically, back in the day, up went the brass plaque with the name on it, and you got the little box in Yellow Pages that were all the same, saying Joe Bat Dentist High Street.
Yeah.
And then you just sat there and people showed up.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's very interesting that I'm just about to get involved in, and it's all top secret, so I can't tell you. I'm just about to get involved in an MBA program for dental practice managers.
Fantastic.
Okay, so here's the thing. A dental practice manager trained to MBA standard in order to do the job. And if I'd have put that to you as a proposition in 1992, you'd have said, don't be daft. That'll never happen in my lifetime. Look at where we are.
I'm delighted to say my dad is a professor of MBA.
Really?
So I come from that background. So I can tell you one thing. He's written 3 books on business management, on corporate planning, etc. So he was a visiting professor at Leeds at Bradford University, and he wrote a couple of books with a professor from Liverpool. So I have got a few hand-me-downs.
A tip for your dad's next project is the book on MBA dental practice management, because
he's retired now.
Somebody's going to have to write it.
Yeah, but coming back to, we touched on the first tip. Second tip, with regards to the financial deficit we end up having, when the enthusiasm is there and they buy the practice and they spend all the money, they've got all the enthusiasm to make this to the next level, but no money.
Yes,
because they've spent it all.
Yep.
So I get that as well, and also with regards to the third factor, which is the management team, it's all well and good having that entrepreneurial, free spirit, vision, etc. Then to spend the time to communicate that with your team, and once you're doing dentistry, you can't do that either.
Yeah.
So that comes back to then not having enough time. So it's a whole one big circle.
Yeah.
So I can see this completely. So that was Chris Barrow talking to us about one fundamental tip on setting up a dental practice for dentists at whatever stage in their career, is to make sure that you try and overestimate by 40%. Thank you very much, Chris. You're watching Jobat TV. Wait for our next clip where Chris Barrow talks to business owners who have now hit a glass ceiling. Look out for that. Hi, I'm Jobat, and thank you for watching my channel. For more interviews with dentists, amazing implant surgeons, business leaders, entrepreneurs, people who think outside the box and create paradigm shifts in which the way we think, follow me on Jobat TV. I look forward to seeing you then.